that shouldn't exist. Two armies are locked in an endless, brutal war. But there are no victors. There is no territory to win.
So why do they fight?
For decades, it was just a designation in the star charts. Heestus, a world dismissed as a chemical inferno, unworthy of study.
But we had to see for ourselves. Curiosity, after all, is its own form of gravity.
And the inferno answered our unspoken question. It began to sculpt flesh from raw geology.
For every thesis, an antithesis. For every creation, a fury born to unmake it.
There was no ritual, no warning, only a sudden, violent, and absolute present tense.
Victory was meaningless. The victor and the vanquished dissolved into the same chemical soup. A reset.
We cataloged thousands of these fleeting lives over the next cycle. None of them ate. None of them reproduced.
They existed only for a brief, glorious moment of violence. Their entire physiology was a weapon.
We tried to apply the laws of evolution, the logic of survival, but none of it fit. This wasn't a struggle for life.
It was a struggle for something else entirely. This wasn't an ecosystem. It was a ritual.
We thought we had begun to understand the rules. But the ocean then showed us the geometry of rage.
But unlike the primal elements, these geometric forms left an echo, a residue of complex information. Our ship's logician, with its quantum senses, began to see what we could not, a pattern in the chaos. The battles weren't random. They were equations. Fire always defeated stone. Stone always crushed crystal. But crystal could contain fire. This wasn't just destruction. This was a system with defined, unbreakable rules.
And with every conclusion, the ocean itself changed. The result of the equation was being recorded.
If these were equations, could we write one of our own?
Could we ask the planet a question?
The decision was made. To move from observer to participant. To speak to the god of the forge. Our question was simple. A single, pure concept fired into the heart of the storm. Order.
We expected a counterattack.
A defense. Instead, the planet listened. From the area saturated with our concept of order, a new phylum was born. Perfect, symmetrical, predictable.
But in answering our question, the planet also had to formulate the opposition.
The antithesis. Pure, untamed chaos.
Two armies, born of a single question. The greatest battle this world had ever seen. Chaos was testing the order. Brute force against unflinching structure. But order is not passive.
It is a weapon of its own. It finds weakness. It isolates. It dissects. The answer to our question was becoming clear. In a direct conflict, pure chaos cannot withstand pure order. The argument was over. The thesis had won. Now, we awaited the synthesis.
Silence.
Silence. The planet had given its answer. Order was supreme. But we soon realized this wasn't the end of the statement.
The victors did not celebrate. They began a new process. A willing, total dissolution. All the energy, all the information from the battle was being recalled,
Funneled into a single point of unimaginable density.
but order alone is sterile. For true creation, the planet needed the
Other half of the argument, the spark of chaos.
Thesis, antithesis, synthesis. We hadn't been watching a war. We were reading a thought. Violence was a debate. The war was a thought process.
This was the conclusion. An idea made flesh.
In that moment, we understood. We were not explorers discovering a new world.
We were toddlers who had just stumbled into a god's workshop and read a single, magnificent word from its notebook.
There were no more questions to ask. It was time to leave. To let the thinker think.
Distance did not bring clarity, only a more profound sense of scale.
We had not discovered a new form of life. We had witnessed a new form of being. And the image was burned into our minds, and the memory of our ship. How do you write a mission report for meeting a god? Or, more accurately, for reading one of its thoughts? Every assumption we had about life, about conflict, about consciousness itself, had been rendered obsolete. We fight wars over resources, over ideology, over lines on a map. The alchemist planet fought for something far more fundamental. It fought to find an answer, to resolve a paradox, to create something new from the friction of opposing ideas.
And it forces us to ask the final, terrifying question. Is the turmoil within our own minds,
Our internal conflicts, our doubts, our moments of inspiration and despair,
are any different from that fiery, violent, and beautiful dance of creation and destruction? We returned. From a universe of living ideas to a world of steel and procedure.
we had left as scientists. We came back as something else, witnesses to a truth too large for language.
The debriefing felt like an interrogation. They asked for metrics, for data, for quantifiable results.
How could we quantify a miracle? How could we explain that the math was alive? They saw the data, but they refused to see the truth. To them, it was just noise.
The final report was classified. The official explanation was mundane.
We had brought back proof of a thinking planet, and they filed it under equipment failure.
And in that cold, sterile room, I finally understood.
You cannot show the color blue to a world that only sees in black and white. The knowledge was not lost. It was archived.
So we were dismissed, sent home with our incredible, impossible secret.
Years passed. The world moved on.
But for those of us who were there, time had fractured on Heestus. They had taken our data, but they couldn't take the memory, the pattern. I knew it was there. I only had to look.
It came from a dead quasar, a place where life as we knew it was impossible.
A whisper in the dark.
It wasn't identical, but it was a reflection, an echo.
The same fundamental mathematics of consciousness.
And then I saw it everywhere, not just on Heestus. It was hidden in the rhythm of pulsars.
In the chaos of a stellar nursery, in the inescapable logic of a black hole's event horizon.
The universe wasn't a collection of dead rock and burning gas. It was a mind. And we were living inside of it.
They could classify the data. They could dismiss the report. But they couldn't archive the cosmos. My work was not to convince them. It was simply to begin to understand. We never returned to Heestus.
But our silent probes, left in high orbit, continued to watch.
In the decades that followed, the planet continued its thought process.
The synthesis was not an end. It was a beginning. It began to dream, to build, to create new thoughts, new arguments, new forms of beauty.
The age of violent debate was over. A new age of collaborative creation had begun. The mind of the alchemist planet was now building cathedrals of pure reason.
And perhaps, in its own way, it remembered the toddlers who stumbled into its workshop so long ago.
Our question was simple. Order.
The planet's final answer was the universe itself. We search for meaning in the darkness, forgetting that we, too, are a part of that beautiful, violent, and thinking cosmos.
And so, the greatest discovery in human history was not published in a journal or announced to the world.
It was whispered in classrooms, shared between those willing to see.
That the universe is not a silent vacuum. It is a living thought, and we are its words.